This is our Canadian payload specialist, Roberta Bonder. She represents the Canadian Space Agency, and she is seated next to our Ulf Morebold, who is our representative from the European Space Agency. Norm Thagard is one of our mission specialists. And this is our commander, Ron Graby. Seated next to another mission specialist, David Hilmers. And our final two members this morning are Bill Reedy and our pilot, Steve Oswald. First shown here is our commander, Ronald Graby. He will be preparing for his third flight in space this morning. Next to Graby is one of our payload specialists from the European Space Agency, Ulf Morebold. He is a citizen of the country of Germany, and he will be making his second flight into space this morning. Our mission specialist, Norm Thagard, is preparing to make his fourth flight into space today. And our Canadian payload specialist, Roberta Bonder, she'll be the only female on board this morning. She'll be making her first trip into space, but this will be the second for a Canadian payload specialist to fly aboard the shuttle. A fit check of the suits is important to make sure that the crews are not only comfortable, but that the seals around the helmets are adequate. And our mission specialist, Dave Hilmers, who was somewhat of a last-minute addition. He is actually was not assigned to the original crew. He is replacing the late Sonny Carter, who was killed in an accidental plane crash about a year ago. David Hilmers will be making his fourth flight into space today. And our mission specialist, Bill Reedy, making his first flight into space today. This is shuttle launch control. And we have our flight crew, our 7-member crew, who are making their way down the third floor level of the operations and checkout building, making their way to the elevator, standing by for the other two crew members to come around the corner so they can all ride down the elevator together. And here they come, our 7-member launch team, launch crew, led by Commander Ron Graby and pilot Steve Oswald, mission specialist Norm Thagard, Bill Reedy and David Hilmers, and our two payload specialists, Ulf Morebold and Roberta Bonder. This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 1 hour, 34 minutes and counting.
T-minus 5 minutes and holding.
And we are at T-minus 5 minutes and holding.
Yes, sir. You have a go to proceed.
Copy. GLS, pick up the clock on your mark, please. Restored program command.
Wilco.
And we will be transferring to orbiter internal power at this time. Discovery is now running off its onboard fuel cells. And the gaseous oxygen vent hood and arm is now slowly being retracted away from the top of the external tank. T-minus 45 seconds, coming up on a go for our auto sequence start.
GLS is go for auto sequence.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. T-minus 25 seconds.
20.
15. 12. 10. 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. We have 3 main engines up and running. 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery and the first International Microgravity Laboratory.
Houston is now controlling. Discovery and crew are rolling on course.
Roll program.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Roll maneuvers complete, placing Discovery and crew heads down and on the proper heading. Engines at 100%. Engines throttling back now to 70% to help maintain optimum aerodynamic conditions as Discovery accelerates through the dense lower altitudes. All systems performing well. Engines throttled down and performing well. Good hydraulics, good electrical systems. Altitude now 23,000 feet. Three engines throttling back up. 3 engines now at 104.
Discovery Houston, your go throttle up. Check hot mic.
Go throttle up.
Discovery now traveling at over 1,000 miles per hour. Altitude 65,000 feet. Downrange distance 8 nautical miles. All systems performing well. Time 1 minute 33 seconds. Next milestone in its climb to orbit will be solid rocket booster burnout and subsequent staging at about 2 minutes 6 seconds. And we have separation. Discovery now flying free of the boosters and under the power of its own main propulsion system. Second stage guidance now in control. Discovery now traveling over 2,800 miles per hour. Altitude 178,000 feet. Downrange distance 36 nautical miles.
Discovery Houston, performance nominal.
First stage.
Performance nominal.
First stage performance of the main engines and boosters was good. Altitude now 200,000 feet. Downrange distance 47 nautical miles. All systems performing well.
Discovery Houston, 2 engine Zaragoza.
2 engines Zaragoza.
Discovery Houston, press to MECO.
Roger, press to MECO.
Discovery now has enough momentum to make a normal insertion to orbit with only 2 engines should one fail. 3 engines continuing to burn well at 104%. All systems performing well. Downrange distance now 306 nautical miles.
Discovery Houston, single engine Zaragoza, 104.
Single engine Zara, 104.
Discovery Houston, we see a nominal MECO, no ohms 1 required, and your go for the ET photo DTO.
This is Mission Control Houston. Activities in the activation procedures with the Spacelab module continue to go very smoothly. The crew has completed almost 14 of the 16 steps.
STS act complete. Now we'll go back to the line.
So far in the activation procedure, everything has gone very smoothly. There are no major problems that are being worked, either with Discovery or with the Spacelab module itself. Controllers here in Houston are in the process of watching over the shoulder of Mission Specialist Norm Thagard as he activates the laboratory.
This is Space Lab Operations Huntsville, showing activities which are currently underway with the BioRack experiment facility. And that facility, of course, supports 17 different experiments during the IML-1 mission. And at the moment, some activity underway on the experiment known as Proto for short, a Danish experiment.
Huntsville, Discovery.
This is Huntsville. Go ahead.
Okay, Reverend, write these down. Let me give you the times. The MWP people said they wanted them.
Ready to copy, Norm.
On the other hand, in its current state, it's not doing us much good.
Copy. Stand by just a minute. Ron, let's see what the investigators want to do. We'll be right back with you.
The BioRack science team from the European Space Agency is monitoring the frog egg experiment here in our science operations area. On BioRack, there's some 17 experiments, 14 of which have been contributed by the European Space Agency and 3 by the United States. This particular experiment series uses equipment especially designed or modified for Space Lab.
Looking good. Looks like Dave's pretty good on the blink control now. That looks great.
The principal investigators, co-investigators are watching with considerable interest. This is Space Lab Mission Operations in Huntsville. Payload Specialist Wolf Beerbold and Mission Specialist Dave Hilmers have set up the SLED experiment. It is one of several space physiology experiments to be conducted during this 7-day Space Lab mission. There are 3 groups of experiments that make up CPF, or Critical Point Facility. One supplied by the United States, another by Holland, and a third by France.
Okay, Huntsville, this is PS2 starting X Activity 3.
At the present time, the crew in the Space Lab module are setting up the triglycine sulfate crystal growth experiment. gas bridge that holds canisters is capable of holding 12 canisters at a time.
Okay, we see that, Bill. Thank you.
In these 3 tubes on the middeck of Discovery, each tube is about 2 inches in diameter and 15 inches long. They're filled with different sized glass beads. One has beads 1/4 millimeter in diameter in it. The other one has beads 1 millimeter in diameter in it. And the third one has beads 2 millimeters in diameter inside. The blue liquid that is moving through is simply blue-colored water to study the action of that liquid, the capillary action as it moves through the porous medium of the glass beads.
That's going to use number 3 instead of number 2.
And we're getting a good extreme close-up view, in this case, of the IMAX 70-millimeter motion picture camera, as pilot Steve Oswald continues to handle the IMAX camera.
in conserving consumables that the folks on the ground are now officially extending your mission an additional day. 2-day mission, additional deorbit opportunities available. You can help us with this by powering down a CRT per the execute package and turning off any other non-necessary equipment that you can find.
Commander Ron Graby and pilot Steve Oswald are in the process of helping controllers do some troubleshooting with the waste collection system. A little bit earlier this afternoon, controllers noticed that that system was not depressurizing as it should, so they're watching over the shoulder of Commander Graby and Steve Oswald as they re-zero the valve control handle.
The late Captain Manly L. Carter, or Sonny as we all knew him, was a member of our crew until his tragic death. The gold star shining brightly in our crew patch represents the way that we will always remember Sonny, a radiant figure illuminating everyone who met him with his warmth, charm, and love. His multitude of talents and incomparable joy for life will never be forgotten.
Sonny shared with us the unique experience of glimpsing the splendor of Earth from space, and for a precious few days, the exhilaration of being liberated from the bondage of gravity. No one ever returned from a flight with a greater sense of awe and wonder than Sonny. He was convinced that it was vital for our country and for the generations which will follow us to maintain a manned presence in space. And no one ever worked harder to make a flight a success than Sonny after he was assigned to IML-1. We can only hope that he would have been proud of the way that we have carried on this mission after him.
Hey, Houston, thanks for letting us take this moment to remember Sonny.
Ron, all of us who knew Sonny echo your sentiments and thank you for those memories of him.
Thank you, Ray.
Discovery Houston, we're with you on Tidris West.
Roger, John. I have a nominal burn.
Okay, we appreciate that. We'll give you some forward RCS burn time, dump time of 50 seconds. And be advised, the secondary actuator check and hydraulic fluid thermal conditioning are not required.
This is Mission Control. Flight Dynamics Officer reports at 90 degrees or halfway around the heading alignment cone. Discovery is nominal energy, moving at about 311 miles per hour, about 16,000 feet altitude. Discovery, this is Mission Control. Discovery is now using information from the microwave landing system.
Discovery Houston, you're on glide slope, on center line. Surface winds are calm.
Roger.
Altitude is 3,400 feet. And the equivalent airspeed is about 3,300 miles per hour coming around the coming into the final approach. Landing gear is locked in place. Landing gear touchdown. Nose gear touchdown as STS mission STS-42 rolls out on runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base, California.
Roger, Discovery, and welcome back. Your mission has given us a preview of space station operations and a look at the international cooperation that will be a part of future space exploration. A nice job, Ron.
Thanks, John. We sure all enjoyed it.
This is Mission Control. The crew transport vehicle has the crew all on board now, all 7 members of the STS-42 crew, and is preparing to pull away. And we'll take the crew on over to the Dryden crew quarter facility. We will be expecting to hand over Discovery to the ground operations managers within the next few minutes. This is Mission Control. The STS-42 Flight Control Team has handed over the care and maintenance of the Space Shuttle Discovery to the ground operations managers at the Dryden facility.
Please stand by for the President of the United States.
Colonel Graby, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. We hear you loud and clear.
What happened? Can you guys hear me up there all right?
We hear you loud and clear, Mr. President.
Loud and clear. Well, let me just say to Commander Graby and all the rest of you all, I'm here with a lot of the young astronauts and some of the older astronauts, as a matter of fact, four of the crews here in the White House complex, and we just called up to wish you well. The Vice President is with me. Admiral Truly is with me, and we just want to get from you all how it's doing down there. A lot of these kids want to get going and get out to Mars. And you got any advice, first of all, for these young guys here, young kids, boys and girls?
Well, certainly, Mr. President, for any young astronauts that want to pursue a career as an astronaut, they ought to be emphasizing math and science in their studies and just doing as well as they can. It's a long, hard road to get there, and it takes a little luck along the way as well, but it's certainly worth the effort.
We've been talking a little bit about the contribution that these journeys make to science. Can you tell us a little bit about the, in layman's terms, please, about the experiments that you all are conducting?
Well, sir, let me turn that over to Norm Taggart. He's our payload commander here on my right.
Well, Mr. President, taking the experiments to orbit is an excellent way to do experiments in some areas of science, and it makes this whole journey well worthwhile. The two principal things that are areas that come to mind are physiology, both plant and animal, and crystal growing, and other material science experiments. And we have some 55 experiments, I think, in the IML complement. Most of those are working even as we speak, and it is our plan to do some more TV, some more explanation later on about some more details of that science.
Well, that is very interesting. Now, if you guys have a couple of more minutes, we don't want to detract you from all this experimentation, but it might be fun if one of these young astronauts, or maybe a couple, would like to... Here comes my man. He's back. This guy just gave a great speech here. Tell him your name and see if you got a question for him.
My name is Russell Frisbee, and here's my question. What's it like in zero gravity?
Did you get that?
The question, as we understood, was what... Yes, sir, we understood the question to be what's it like in zero gravity, and let's turn that over to Bill Reedy, who's on Bob's left.
It's great. Just floating around and everything. But a lot of things it just makes a whole lot easier. Aside from putting your pants on both legs at same time, it's easy to translate back and forth, and makes it a whole lot easier to do a lot of the science because any particular orientation you choose works the same as any other.
What's she doing? That makes it all very clear. Thank you. Any other? You come on. You come up and ask one. This is a rare opportunity. Fire away.
I wanted to know.
So they can hear it.
I wanted to know what was your favorite experiment you've taken up so far?
Well, that sounds like a good question for Steve Oswald, our pilot, to answer. Steve's over here on Bill's left.
Actually, I guess I'm not sure that being in the front of the bus, we're working the experiments all that hard, but we've got the IMAX camera aboard, and Bill and Ron and I have been having a great time taking those movies that you see on the big screen. And we're taking pictures right now for a movie that'll be coming out here within a year or two.
I would like to...
Breaking out the camera for the IMAX. I can just show that to you, how big it is.
They're asking about what's great about zero-G. Well, this camera on Earth probably weighs about, 110, 120 pounds. And even a big boost like ours has trouble hefting it. But you can see you can quite easily do it with just fingers.
The camera probably weighs as much as Roberta, who's manipulating it right now, and you can see she has no trouble at all with it.
That's great. You have one?
Mr. President, the one crew member.
Which one do you like better, being in space or being on Earth?
Well, I'd like to introduce our Canadian payload specialist, Roberta Bonder, who will be glad to answer that one.
Well, actually, living both in space and on the Earth really makes you appreciate the good and the bad of both. I think right now we're enjoying very much the limited opportunity we've had so far of being up here. We've certainly enjoyed looking back at the Earth during our brief moments when we're not in the lab working the sciences, and we're really looking forward to a return to Earth to bring back all the scientific information and all the enthusiasm and experience that we've gained in this flight. So for all of us, I think right now we're just enjoying where we are, and we're going to be enjoying where we're going to be when we come back. And I think it's just great to have had this opportunity to be flying with this great crew.
Dr. Bondar, this is not a young astronaut. This is the President speaking now, but I just want to say how pleased we are that you representing Canada are a fundamental part of this. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think in a wonderful way it shows the strength of ties between our two great countries. So I understand the Prime Minister, my friend Brian Mulroney, called. Did he actually get through the other day?
That was right about the time we were having our briefing just near lunchtime, and instead I had a lovely telegram from him, and he wished us all well and Godspeed.
Well, keep up the good work. Now, if you got time for one more question, we got a real eager one right here. Front of the line. Here we go. See if you can get so they can...
I wonder how you feel in space.
I think the question was, how do we feel in space?
Yeah.
Well, in space, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. When you first get up, you might feel just the slightest bit queasy or so, but by about today, this is our third day in space, we're beginning to adapt pretty well. I think you can see we all feel pretty comfortable up here. So after you get over the initial adjustment, you can live in space quite well and do things that you do on Earth.
Well, some of the older astronauts are actually in space now, and anything that can give you the enthusiasm that a kid has got to be a great experience, and I feel like I'm about 12.
Well, we go. You get yours in there. You get it.
What planets have you seen?
What planets have you seen?
Well, of course, we got the world's greatest view of our world, but on some of our night passes, we could see Saturn and Jupiter and Mars and Venus. It's really spectacular up here. Hope we could go to Mars here one of these days.
Well, we're going to keep trying to get this program geared up to do just that, and maybe, just maybe, Colonel, one of these kids here today will be a part of that. Maybe sooner, maybe later, but I'll bet one of them will be a part of that mission. But listen, I'm told we gotta run on, but we got a lot of eager questioners, but unfortunately, I guess we don't have the time. But we certainly want to wish you well. Your fellow astronauts are standing here quietly in the shadows, and I know that they are wishing you well, the successful conclusion of this productive journey. And you have our blessings and our support, and keep up the fine work. You're on the cutting edge, and you're setting a great example for the rest of our country, the rest of the world. Congratulations, and thanks for taking the time out.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. We certainly want to thank you for taking the time. I want to wish all the young astronauts luck in their careers.
Well, the worldwide television audience for today's game is estimated at around 750 million people. But what about the audience out of this world? Joining us now live from the Space Shuttle Discovery in orbit some 163 nautical miles or 3,300 football fields above the Indian Ocean on the opposite side of the planet from Minneapolis, our shuttle commander, Ron Gravy. He is the gentleman in the Redskin hat. I wonder who's pulling for, Greg. Pilot Steve Oswald. Welcome to the Super Bowl today, gentlemen. Tell us, we see a lot going on there. What are we looking at?
Well, Greg and Terry, we're real happy to be with you. What you're looking at here is the Space Lab module that we have in the payload bay of the Shuttle Discovery. And let me call some of our payload crew members, Norm Thaggart and Roberta Bonder, up forward, and they can give you a little idea of what's been going on.
Well, Greg and Terry, this is the Space Lab mission, and that means science, so we've been performing one of our vestibular experiments, and we'll break away from that and join Ron, I guess.
Well, tell me, gentlemen, let's get your thoughts on today's game since we've taken you away from your work temporarily.
Well, actually, Greg, we were kind of hoping that Houston was going to be in today's game, but it looks like you've got a couple of great teams that are going to go at it. We're just sorry that we don't have a way of receiving the game up here, and besides that, NASA's keeping us a little busy today.
I've got to ask you this. How in the world are you going to keep tabs on the game, find out who's winning?
Well, we think Houston will keep us pretty well informed.
You hope so. Anyway, here, how would a coin toss work in zero gravity? Would that present some problems?
Well, we thought about that. We hoped you'd ask, so we have a little demonstration here. I'm going to give the coin to Roberta Bonder here. She's our Canadian payload specialist. She knows a little more about Canadian football than American football, but nonetheless she's interested, and we'll see about a zero-G coin toss.
Unbelievable. I don't suppose we should call heads or...
Greg?
Looks like it's heads, Greg.
Terry and Greg, as you can see in zero-G, the coin never comes down, so we'll just have to defer the coin toss with the official pregame ceremony.
Well, we hope they'll keep you advised of what's happening, and we sure appreciate you having taken time out of your busy schedule. We wish you a terrific mission and a happy touchdown next Wednesday.
Thanks very much. We're delighted to have taken part.
And, of course, we are looking for our fair share of touchdowns here today. Well, we waited almost 2.5 hours to say this. When we come back, our final thoughts.
This is Cologne for Commando.
Ron Graves.
Roger, Cologne. This is Discovery. Commander Ron Gravey speaking.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking. Dr. Komolka, Dr. Risenhuber, and myself will speak in this order. Now, Dr. Komolka, first.
Discovery, hier ist Komolka. Ich grüße den Commander Ron Graves und seine Crew von der STS 42.
Ja, danke sehr, Herr Präsident. Ich möchte Ulf Merbold als Mitglied unserer Besatzung vorstellen. Sie haben sicher ein paar Fragen an ihn. Soweit ist es uns gelungen, ein erfolgreiches Flug zu haben. Und hier ist Ulf.
Vielen Dank. Herr Merbold, Sie sind der erste deutsche Astronaut, der aus dem Weltraum das vereinigte Deutschland sieht. Mich interessiert besonders, welche Eindrücke Sie von Mecklenburg-Vorpommern haben, dem Land des Ministerpräsidenten ich bin.
Ja, die letzte Runde um die Erdkugel sind wir über Mecklenburg-Vorpommern hinweggeflogen. Das ist jetzt gerade eine Stunde her. Und jetzt sind wir schon wieder über dem Atlantischen Ozean und werden in 20 Minuten über Südfrankreich fliegen. Es ist natürlich immer sehr schön, wenn man das eigene Heimatland aus dem Weltraum sieht, aber es dauert nur eine Minute, dann ist man nicht nur über Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, sondern über ganz Deutschland drüber hinweggeflogen.
Herr Merbold, ich weiß, dass Sie einen Teil Ihrer Freizeit opfern. Als kleines Äquivalent, ich lade Sie ein, nicht nur eine Minute, sondern eine Woche oder länger, sich einmal das anzusehen, was Sie aus dem Weltraum betrachten können. Herzlich willkommen, schon Jens.
Bei Ihrer Einladung.
Hallo?
Ja, Entschuldigung, dass ich Sie unterbrochen habe.
Nein, ich wollte nur eine Einladung aussprechen und ich möchte Sie gleichzeitig bitten, bei der Gelegenheit auch die Satellitenempfangsstation in Neustrelitz zu besuchen.
Bei Ihrer Einladung nehme ich gerne an und freue mich darauf, auch die Satellitenstation in Neustrelitz zu besichtigen.
Vielen Dank. Herr Merbold, hat sich Ihr Körper und Ihrer Kollegen schon an die Weltraumerfahrung gewöhnt? Wie ist Ihre Erfahrung jetzt?
Ja, wir haben uns also alle schon sehr gut angepasst und ich sollte vielleicht auch noch hinzufügen, dass ich hier mit einer außerordentlich erfahrenen Crew, mit einer sehr erfahrenen Besatzung unterwegs bin. Hinter mir arbeitet Norman Zaggart, er fliegt jetzt zum 4. Mal im Weltraum, unser Commander Ron Gravey zum 3. Mal. Und wir haben noch einen zweiten, nämlich meinen Arbeitspartner Dave Hilmers, er ist auch schon zum 4. Mal im Weltraum unterwegs. Und es hilft natürlich, die Anpassungszeit zu verkürzen.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking. Dr. Komolka has finished. Now, Dr. Risenhuber will speak.
Discovery, this is Heinz Risenhuber speaking. Herr Commander, es freut mich, dass Sie so ein ausgezeichnetes Deutsch sprechen. Und meine besten Grüße und meine besten Wünsche gehen zu Ihnen und Ihren Kollegen.
Dankeschön, das ist sehr nett von Ihnen zu sagen, aber auf einmal habe ich gut Deutsch sprechen können, aber das war eine lange Zeit vorher.
Es ist schön, dass Deutsch eine selbstverständliche Sprache auch im Weltraum wird. Herr Merbold,
danke.
Wir haben ja vor 9 Jahren schon mal miteinander gesprochen, als Sie zum ersten Mal im Weltraum gewesen sind. Sie haben jetzt bei Ihrem Flug den größten Teil Ihrer Arbeiten erledigt. Und was ich jetzt in den Gesprächen mit vielen Leuten höre, ist, was erwarten Sie sich von den Ergebnissen? Hilft es uns, was Sie im Raum tun, hier auf der Erde, um unsere Arbeit voranzubringen?
Ja, mit Sicherheit. Die Missionen, an denen ich bis jetzt beteiligt war, sind immer sehr ergiebig gewesen, was die wissenschaftliche Ausbeute angeht. Und dieses Mal wieder, wir haben sehr viele Experimente, die sich mit der menschlichen Physis beschäftigen, insbesondere mit dem Vestibularorgan. Außerdem sind wir bestrebt, gute Einkristalle herzustellen aus Materialien, die auch große praktische Bedeutung haben, als Röntgendetektoren oder Infrarotdetektoren. Und ich bin persönlich optimistisch, dass die meisten Experimente sehr gute Ergebnisse erbringen werden.
Mehr wollte, ist ja über die einzelnen Experimente hinaus eine großartige Sache, wie sich eine internationale Partnerschaft entwickelt hat. Einer Ihrer Kollegen wird in 6 Wochen zur russischen Raumstation mit mir fliegen. Und in einem Jahr werden wir die nächste D2-Mission haben. Wo sehen Sie eigentlich in der langfristigen Strategie aus der Distanz des Weltraums betrachtet die Möglichkeit, dass so eine internationale Zusammenarbeit hier uns helfen wird, auf der Erde friedlich zusammenzuleben und unsere Probleme zu lösen, die wir hier unten haben?
Ja, das ist natürlich ein abendfüllendes Thema. Meine amerikanischen Freunde und Kollegen und ich genießen ja das Privileg, unseren Globus in 90 Minuten zu umrunden. Und da werden die einzelnen Länder, aus denen wir kommen, eigentlich sehr irrelevant. Es ist aus dieser Position sehr deutlich, dass wir auf einem Raumschiff durch den Weltraum fliegen, dem Raumschiff Erde. Und es ist deswegen unsere Überzeugung, dass es für uns alle die beste Verfahrensweise ist, wenn wir zusammenarbeiten, um die Probleme auf der Erde zu lösen. Und ich glaube, der Weltraum, der hat eine doppelte Bedeutung. Einmal eine philosophische, nämlich die Erkenntnis, dass wir alle zusammen durch den finsteren Weltraum fliegen. Und das zweite ist die praktische Bedeutung, dass wir vom Weltraum aus die globalen Zusammenhänge studieren können.
Herr Meerwold, weiterhin guten Flug, in guter Kameradschaft, mit guter Wissenschaft und in einem guten Geist.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking again. Dr. Eisenhuber has finished. Now I am speaking. My greetings to Commander Graves and to the STS-42 crew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luton. We appreciate that. This is an international flight, an international crew, and we're very privileged to be a part of it.
Discovery, 6 Europeans are flying this year in space. How do you feel about this?
Well, I think space is a unique place to do scientific experiments for various reasons. There's weightlessness for a very long period of time. There's no atmosphere. And we also have a global view such that we can study our own home planet. And therefore, I think there's a tremendous potential for scientific experiments.
We will soon reach the turn of the century. How do you see the next steps of ESA in space?
Oh, the turn of the century, I think, from my personal point of view, that it is clear that we should work together on a global scale, and I'm a very privileged man that I have already an opportunity now to fly in orbit with the finest astronauts of the United States of America, and I think we, from a European point of view, can learn a lot from them, and I feel personally that we should intensify the cooperation because we can learn a lot, and if we pull our potential, then I think we can accomplish a lot.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking again. I have finished. It is time to conclude. Our best wishes of success for the STS-42 mission to the whole crew. Thank you, Commander Grab, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luton. It's been a real pleasure.
Discovery Houston, that concludes the call. Great job.
Thanks a lot.
Discovery Houston, we've got a good downlink video of you. Are you ready for your call from Canada?
Houston, Discovery is ready for the call from Canada.
Toronto, Houston, please go ahead with your call.
Discovery, this is Toronto for Commander Ron Graby.
Toronto, this is Discovery, Commander Ron Graby speaking. Your voice quality is loud and clear.
Good evening, Commander Graby. This is Jay Ingram at the Ontario Science Centre in Toronto. Prime Minister Brian Mulroney is standing by in Ottawa, and the Minister for Science, William Weingard, is with me right beside me here in Toronto. Congratulations to you and all your crew on a very successful flight so far.
Well, Jay, on behalf of the entire crew of IML-1, we'd certainly like to thank you. We have been very fortunate so far. The flight's gone very well. We're very pleased with that. At this point, I would like to turn things over to and introduce Dr. Roberta Bonder.
Good evening, Jay.
Hello, Dr. Bonder. To start things off, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister, is waiting in Ottawa, and he's ready to speak with you right now.
Good evening, Roberta, and congratulations on becoming Canada's second space traveler. As you know, this is a year of celebration in Canada, our 125th birthday, and your flight has captured the imagination of all of your fellow Canadians, probably in a way that you couldn't have imagined. And the success of this international mission has demonstrated to the world that anything can be achieved with dedication and cooperation, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to congratulate you on what you and your colleagues have achieved so far, and to wish you all well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. It's been indeed an honor and privilege to be on board this particular mission. We've had a great deal of science accomplished so far in this flight, and we still have a couple more days, we hope, to be able to do a little bit more. We've enjoyed being with each other and working with each other and learning new things about the world and about how we work and how we view science. And it's just been a fantastic experience, and I just can't wait to get back and start telling people all about it.
Roberta, I spoke earlier today with Ken Money, who told me that you had spent a little time just studying countries as they went by. And I understand that you caught a glimpse of Canada during your mission. What struck you most during the sight?
Well, at lunchtime today, I had a tape on, I had a cassette tape on at the front, and I actually had a recording of, that I had recorded for me before I came up here of Canada. And I just happened to go up to the flight deck, and we were going right over Canada, and it was just fantastic. Although it's wintertime, and we were going over the northern part of Canada, we went across the Northwest Territories, down across into Quebec and Ontario. And you could certainly go back and you can recognize all the land features. It was just absolutely fantastic. There were very, very few clouds around. And I must say that for people who think that our country, when it's wintertime, is not exciting, let me tell you, it's exceptionally exciting from space. Very, very clear. And I just can't, I wish I could just have a foot down and walk across every mile of this beautiful country because it just looks so exciting from up here. It's just beautiful.
Roberta, vous êtes dans l'espace depuis déjà 7 jours. Est-ce que la vie dans l'espace est très différente de la vie sur Terre? Parce que vous venez de dire que un peu mon pays, c'est l'hiver.
Oui, bien sûr, il y a beaucoup de différences dans l'espace. Par exemple, pour les repas, si vous voulez, c'est possible de manger le yogourt, par exemple, mais c'est possible dans l'espace de jouer avec la nourriture. Par exemple, le yogourt, c'est comme ça. Avec le cuir. C'est pour le repas, c'est nécessaire aussi de fixer solidement sur le mur, le plancher, le plafond. C'est n'importe quelle surface on doit utiliser parce que c'est la même chose. Le mur, c'est le même que le plafond, le plancher, c'est la même chose et c'est très intéressant.
C'est excellent pour la diète.
La diète, c'est pas exactement comme la cuisine francophone, mais pour l'espace, il y a les petites bonbons de sirop d'érable, par exemple.
Roberta, Canadians across the country have been following your mission with great interest and pride. I wonder if you have a special message for them tonight.
Well, I think our country has much to be proud of in terms of things we've accomplished for our own country, especially in the field of science. I'm very, very proud to be a Canadian as part of this crew. And I think that all Canadians should be very pleased with the things that we do, different things, the variety of things we do, and the wonderful things that we share in our culture and our spirits. I think our country has great potential, and I think it's up to each one of us to be sure that we achieve our potential, especially the young people.
Well, Roberta, all Canadians are proud of you and what you've achieved, and I'd like to congratulate your other crew members as well on this splendid achievement, and on behalf of all Canadians, wish you all a very safe journey home. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of the entire crew, thank you very much for those wishes.
Dr. Bondar, this is Jay Ingram back in Toronto again. Thank you very much, Mr. Mulrooney. I have with me the Honorable William Weingard, the Minister for Science, and I think he'd like to take over and talk to you now.
Well, Roberta, it doesn't seem possible that when you graduated from the University of Guelph, that all these years later we would have the opportunity to talk like this. It is quite thrilling for us. I have 700 people in the Ontario Science Centre, 200 of whom are children, many girl guides. They have asked me to ask you one special question. What's it like up there?
Well, it's very, very exciting. It's really something to be able to just float around and drift around and just sort of at nighttime not worry about your pillow or your bed. And you have to have good buddies like Commander Graby here to grab you back down to earth a bit up here in space. But the most exciting part of it, besides working the science, is to be able to have some perspective on where we are in the world today and to be able to look down from space on a beautiful planet. There is a crisp, beautiful, clear, brilliant blue atmosphere that we see, and we see it all the time. We have been in the sunlight on the orbiter for days. We haven't had night for a while. We haven't had the darkness shine on the orbiter yet. And it has been absolutely incredible looking down and seeing all the countries without boundaries, everything blended into one. And you can't see people down there. Sometimes you can see the results of the work that people have done. But for the most part, you get this incredible feeling that the whole world is such a unique place and is all one. And we should try to preserve it that way. And I really feel very, very strongly that we are certainly an all-one planet.
Some of the children also have an interest in the Canadian IMX motion picture camera. They want to know if it's still functioning well on its 9th journey into space.
It's functioning very well. In fact, we've had a lot of fun taking some IMAX footage of the work we've been doing here. Commander Graves is just going to come over and get a film canister. This is what it looks like. Now, on Earth, of course, I wouldn't be able to lift it like this. But in space, it can float by itself. So we're trying to get footage up here on what it's like to actually live up here, the kind of science that we need to do in order to be able to understand what it's like to be in space and to help us solve some of those mysteries that we've discovered. And actually, what we've discovered in this site, there are a lot more mysteries that have to be looked into and questions raised and problems and experiments to solve in the future and years ahead. So I think that for the IMAX filming, it's going to be most exciting to be able to see this laboratory, hopefully on the screen one day, and you'll be able to see more clearly the kinds of things we've been able to do in the last few days up here in space.
Thank you. One last word from me, Roberta. I must say that your somersaulting on Sunday was much more interesting than the game.
Well, thanks very much, and I want you to know that Yankee tender and Canadian tender are worth the same up here.
is Jay Ingram again, Dr. Bondar. Thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us, and thank you also, Commander Graby, for setting time aside for us to be able to talk to you both from Toronto here, William Weingart and myself, and for the Prime Minister, Mr. Mulrooney, in Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discovery Houston, we have good downlink video from the lab. You ready for the press conference on Air to Ground 2?
Houston Discovery, we're ready for the conference.
Roger, Discovery, stand by from the Marshall Press Center. Marshall, go with your call.
Discovery, this is the Marshall Press Center. We're ready to begin the press conference if you are.
Marshall Press Center, you're loud and clear, and we're ready to begin.
Good morning. I have a question for Dr. Bondar. We don't have too many Canadians in space, so I'd like to start off with her. It's Mike Omelas from Broadcast News Canada. Dr. Bondar, I wonder if you could describe those 3 hours sitting in the shuttle waiting to take off last Wednesday. What was it like? What were you thinking about? And then could you describe that ride up to the heavens?
Well, it was certainly a thrill just even sitting there with my colleagues, and we were ready to grasp hands every time they gave us a go when we were able to proceed with the countdown. And when we actually got to the point of liftoff, it was just absolutely wonderful to be on the middeck hearing the flight crew sing, "Marvelous, marvelous."
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation for Roberta Bondar. Roberta, we know how much you were looking forward to looking down at the planet and out to the stars. Can you share with us just what your thoughts and feelings have been as you've done that?
Well, it's very, very difficult to describe, and I think that's what everybody says. My impression of the planet Earth is that certainly the title of Blue Planet is a good one, because the crisp, shiny, bright jewel that we have, we could see the limb of the Earth when I first got to the window. It was one of the first things I wanted to do. And it was very, very exciting for me to be able to look down. And when I first came over Canada, it was the biggest thrill imaginable, winter or no winter. It's just absolutely beautiful and spectacular. And I'm coming back to Earth with a feeling that there is absolutely nothing boring. There is no boring place anywhere in this whole planet.
Joanne Arcan de Radio-Canada. Une question en français pour le Dr Bondar. Docteur Bondar, les scientifiques semblent très satisfaits du travail que vous faites actuellement. Est-ce que c'est véritablement un défi de faire des expériences qui ont été préparées par 200 scientifiques?
Je m'excuse, mais c'est très difficile de vous comprendre. Est-ce que c'est possible de répéter la question, ou peut-être en anglais, si vous voulez?
Bondar, Kevin Bissett from CFBC Radio in St. John, New Brunswick. What's been the most difficult thing to adapt to in space?
Donc, si la question c'est au sujet des expériences dans l'espace, c'est très difficile pour les scientifiques dans l'espace de faire des expériences exactement comme sur la Terre, parce que on doit flotter dans l'espace et il y a beaucoup de temps. On doit avoir beaucoup de temps de faire des expériences ici que la Terre, que sur la Terre.
Okay, again, it's Kevin Bissett from CFBC Radio in St. John, New Brunswick. Dr. Bondar, if you could tell us what's been the most difficult thing to adapt to in space.
the hang of going between the space lab and the middeck through the tunnel without becoming totally disoriented. It's kind of an unusual feeling to come up from the middeck into the space lab, and you think you're in one direction, you pop up into the space lab, and bingo, you're upside down with reference to vertical that we learned on Earth.
Stephen Strauss from the Globe and Mail newspaper in Toronto. This is for Dr. Bondar. I know you're working on a book with your sister about the science of the IML mission. What will you put in the book now or emphasize having actually flown that you might not have put in before?
Well, I've been trying to keep some rigorous notes and a daily diary on tape about some of the aspects of doing science in space and some of the things that we need to not only tell the young people who I hope will read the book, but also us scientists who want to put on experiments in spaceflight. I also would like to include a little bit more about daily living up here because it is fun. We've had a good time together, and there are a lot of little tricks that you learn up here and a lot of experience that you can gain from others in terms of trying to make this a wonderful environment in which to live.
For Dr. Bondar, Yves Savory, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the question that you were asked in French, Dr. Bondar, you had said it was the biggest open book exam of your life. How has that played out?
Well, it was not an underestimation, let me tell you. When you first start up, at least for me here in the Space Lab, we first started up the series of experiments, you work with sweaty palms because you know how much work the scientists have put into putting the experiments together. We only hope that the data that they're going to get back from this space mission will be reflective of all our caring and effort that we put in up here. So in terms of the open book exam, I hope that when we get back, we all get 4 A's.
My question will be directed to Dr. Bondar. My name is Réal Damour de Radio-Canada. Roberta, vous avez pratiqué, vous avez répété les expériences sur Terre pendant 2 ans. Est-ce que ça se passe comme prévu dans l'espace?
Bonjour Réal, est-ce que c'est possible de répéter la question? Maintenant, je pense que c'est possible de vous écouter.
Roberta, bonjour. Vous avez répété pendant 2 ans ces expériences dans le Space Lab ici au Marshall Space Center. Est-ce que ça se passe de la même façon dans l'espace?
À Marshall, l'entraînement, c'est très bon, mais dans l'espace, c'est très difficile de faire des expériences dans la même période de temps. C'est-à-dire, il faut utiliser beaucoup de temps pour faire des expériences dans l'espace que sur la Terre à Marshall.
My name is Klaus Walter. I'm asking Ulf Meerbold for CDF German TV. Ulf, I first would like to ask you in English and switch to German. After your first space flight, you spoke of the vulnerability of the planet Earth. Now, well, back into space, what do you think, how can we on Earth get profit out of the space and the conditions you found there? Sie oben im Weltraum vorgefunden haben, Ulf Meerbold, können wir uns auf der Erde denn in der Zukunft einmal zunutze machen?
I think there is no question. Space flight, from my perspective, has a lot of potential. First of all, we use space as a unique laboratory and do experiments in all different scientific areas, Earth observation, material science, life sciences, and so on. And all the knowledge gained there will help to make life on Earth better. In addition, spaceflight requires, let's say, high-tech approaches. For that reason, technology is stimulated. And a classical example of this kind is the Apollo program. I think it stimulated tremendously the development of the integrated circuits because addition, there's also a philosophical dimension. It's for the first time in human history that we have the means in hand to leave the planet. And I think that will change our views. And therefore, there's no question in my mind that space flight is important, and it would be a tremendous mistake not to do it.
This is Daria Robinson of the European Space Agency. I have questions now from our press watching you directly from Europe. The first one from Piet Smulders, Dutch space writer of VARA Television. Ulf, almost 10 years ago you made your first space flight. Is there a distinct difference between your personal experience then and now from a psychological and physiological point of view?
Now, my first space flight was 8 years ago. I think I'm 8 years older, but that makes it easier for me.
Question from Richard Schurman, Dutch space editor, Pers Uni Svelse Courant. What, to Ron Graby, what has been the most exciting and unexpected event during this IML mission so far?
Well, the most exciting event for any space flight, I think, really has to be the ascent phase. The first 8.5 minutes, you're really at the focal point of the unleashing of a lot of power. And regardless of what happens after that, that's still got to be the most exciting thing that you're going to experience.
German television again. Ulf Merbold, do you think that, in your opinion, should space exploration continue in national programs, or do you see any chance to get more cooperation instead of more competition, even through the costs will be reduced?
Oh, my mind is very clear. I'm in favor of cooperation. And I think the IML flight, the flight we are on right now, is a classical example for a cooperative program, because we have an international crew, we have experiments from many different nations, and I think that is the way to do it.
Ulf Merbold, was würden Sie sich denn von den Deutschen wünschen in Sachen Weltraumpolitik? Muss mehr für die Weltraumpolitik, für die Erforschung des Weltraums in Deutschland auch der Jugend beigebracht werden?
Ich glaube, wir brauchen nur eine klare politische Linie beibehalten, und zwar in Richtung internationale Beteiligung an Weltraumprogrammen.
Another question for Ulf from Ralf Hupertz from Raumfahrtinfodienst. After your second experience in space, what advice do you give to future colleagues who will be exposed on Columbus to long-duration flights?
Well, I think I'm not really in the position to give good advice, because if I'm lucky, I will spend 18 days in orbit, which is not a very long period of time. I think the best people to give advice are the Russians.
Another question to Ulf Merbold. Ulf, was war für Sie denn jetzt der größte Unterschied im Gegensatz zu Ihrer ersten Mission?
Ja, die erste Mission, die ist für mich etwas aufregender abgelaufen als die zweite. Ja, aber ich glaube, das ist immer so im Leben. Das zweite Mal ist dann schon etwas mehr Routine dabei.
This is Brian Magruder with the CBS television affiliate in Huntsville, Alabama. This is for any of the crew members who've been experiencing the sickness in the rotating chair. Did you have that problem when you attempted the rotating chair on Earth, and why do you suppose you are experiencing the sickness problems now?
Okay, well, somehow I managed to get this one. The rotating chair can be a challenge at times, but I think in general we've been able to get through most of it. A lot of folks, probably about 2/3 of folks, are a little bit queasy on the first couple of days. Anytime you're doing any motion, it tends to exacerbate it. The chair induces motion, so as you might understand, it also exacerbates any queasiness you're having.
Good morning. I'm Kerry Martin from the NBC affiliate here in Huntsville, Alabama.
Lieutenant Colonel David Hilmers, I read that you've become fairly relaxed in this nauseating motion experiment. What is your mindset going into some of these experiments? Are you personally and genuinely interested, or is it more like a giant playground where you get to play with the toys, and do you leave the interpretation for the doctors and scientists here on Earth?
Ron, I'm not sure I heard all the question. There was something about me being relaxed going into the experiments. I actually have found the MBI experiment to be one that I have difficulty